I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room, the sudden urgent meetings I wasn't invited to, the way Lisa Morgan, the CEO's daughter, had started shadowing me to learn the business. But I was too busy saving Stellar Technologies from its own incompetence to notice I was being set up. My name is Olivia Chen, and until last Friday, I was the Chief Operating Officer of Stellar Technologies. I'd spent 6 years dragging the company into the modern era, transforming it from a struggling software developer into a major player in artificial intelligence. Our stock price had tripled. Our client list included Fortune 500 companies, and I had done it all while Robert Morgan, our CEO, took long lunches and played golf with investors. That Friday started like any other. I arrived at 7 a.m., reviewing quarterly projections while most of the executive team was still hitting the snooze button. By 9, I'd already solved 2 client crises and approved the budget for our new AI research division. Then Robert Morgan's secretary appeared at my door. "Mr. Morgan would like to see you in the boardroom." I grabbed my tablet and followed her, mentally reviewing our ongoing projects. We had the Jensen contract negotiations this afternoon, the new software launch next week, and the Tokyo expansion to finalize. Nothing that should require an emergency meeting. The boardroom door clicked shut behind me with unusual finality. Robert sat at the head of the table, perfectly groomed in his usual $1,000 suit. Lisa perched beside him, wearing what looked like a brand new Chanel blazer. The company's head of HR lurked uncomfortably in the corner. "Olivia," Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Please sit down." I remained standing. "I have the Jensen meeting in an hour. What's this about?" "The Jensen meeting has been reassigned," he said smoothly. "In fact, all your projects are being reassigned. We're making some organizational changes." The pieces clicked into place. I looked at Lisa, saw the triumph in her eyes, and understood everything. "You're firing me." "Reorganizing," Robert corrected. "Lisa will be taking over as COO. She's family, you understand. It's time for her to step up and take her rightful place in the company." Lisa's rightful place. I almost laughed. Lisa, who had bounced between 3 different jobs in 2 years. Lisa, who had spent more time planning her office decoration than learning our business model. Lisa, who had once asked me if artificial intelligence meant our computers needed therapy. "The severance package is generous," Robert continued, sliding a folder across the table. 6 months' salary, health benefits through the end of the year. "We'll announce you're leaving to pursue other opportunities." I picked up the folder, thinking of all the nights I'd stayed late fixing problems I didn't even know existed. The weekends I'd sacrificed. The vacation days I'd never taken. "The Jensen contract," I said quietly. "They won't sign if I'm not involved. You know that." Robert waved dismissively. "Lisa will handle it. She's more than capable." Behind him, the HR director winced slightly. He knew as well as I did that Lisa couldn't handle a coffee order, let alone a multi-million-dollar contract negotiation. "You have until noon to clear out your office," Robert added. "It will supervise to ensure no sensitive information leaves the building. Like the information about how you've been inflating quarterly reports." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Robert's smile turned cold. "Careful, Olivia. Accusations like that could be considered defamatory. Remember your non-disclosure agreement." Of course. The NDA I'd signed when I first joined Stellar. The one that conveniently prevented me from warning investors or clients about what was really happening inside the company. I looked at Lisa again, noticed her nervously twisting her rope of pearls. "You know the Tokyo expansion needs regulatory approval by next Thursday, and that the new software launch has compatibility issues that need to be resolved before it goes live." Lisa's smile faltered slightly. Father has complete confidence in my abilities. I'm sure he does." I turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. The Jensen contract. Mr. Jensen is allergic to shellfish. Try not to kill him at the celebratory dinner like you almost did last time." I walked out, leaving Lisa sputtering and Robert's face turning an interesting shade of red. My team was waiting outside my office, their faces a mix of shock and anger. They'd heard already. Bad news travels fast in corporate corridors. "They can't do this," Mike, my senior project manager, said as he helped me pack. "The company needs you." "They can do whatever they want," I replied, carefully wrapping the small jade elephant my grandmother had given me for luck. It's their company. That wasn't strictly true, of course. Stellar Technologies was publicly traded, but Robert Morgan held enough shares to do whatever he wanted, and the board of directors was stacked with his golf buddies. Sarah, my executive assistant, handed me a flash drive with tears in her eyes. Your personal files. I backed them up last week during the server maintenance. Smart girl. I slipped it into my pocket while the IT supervisor wasn't looking. By 11:30, my office was empty except for the furniture and the awards I'd earned for the company. I left those on the walls. They'd look good in Lisa's Instagram posts. Ms. Chen, the IT supervisor shifted uncomfortably. I need your company phone and laptop. I handed them over, already missing the familiar weight of the phone in my pocket. 6 years of my life, reduced to 2 cardboard boxes and a potted plant. Robert appeared in the doorway as I gathered my things. No hard feelings, Olivia. Business is business. I'm sure you'll land on your feet somewhere. I met his gaze steadily. You know what they say about karma, Robert? He laughed. Save the threats. By Monday, you'll be yesterday's news. If he noticed I was smiling as I walked out, he probably assumed I was holding back tears. He was wrong. I spent the drive home running numbers in my head. Not severance package calculations or job search strategies. No, I was thinking about something much bigger. See, Robert Morgan hadn't just made a mistake in firing me. He'd made 3 critical errors that would prove fatal to his control of Stellar Technologies. First, he'd forgotten about the offshore development team I'd built in Singapore. The team that technically reported to a holding company I personally controlled. The team that was about to finish a revolutionary AI project that would make our current software look prehistoric. Second, he'd been too busy playing golf to notice that his company's stock had been steadily declining for the past 3 months. Small amounts, nothing to raise alarms, but enough to make major shareholders nervous. Nervous shareholders who might be interested in selling their stakes to the right buyer. And third, most importantly, he had no idea who I really was. Robert Morgan saw me as just another executive, someone he could discard when it suited him. He didn't know about my family in Hong Kong, or the investment fund they controlled. He'd never bothered to look beyond my resume to wonder how a 34-year-old had acquired the expertise to transform his struggling company. I parked in my building's garage and took the private elevator to my penthouse apartment. Not the kind of place a typical COO could afford, but Robert had never visited. He'd been too busy mentoring his daughter to notice that his second-in-command lived in one of the most expensive buildings in the city. Inside, I kicked off my heels and opened my laptop, my personal laptop, not the company-issued one I'd surrendered. Time to make some calls. First, to Hong Kong. Uncle, remember that opportunity we discussed? It's time. Then to Singapore. Begin phase 2 of Project Phoenix. Yes, immediately. Finally, to my lawyer. How quickly can you put together a tender offer for a public company? By midnight, everything was in motion. While Robert Morgan celebrated his daughter's promotion with champagne and social media posts, a complex web of financial transactions was unfolding across 3 continents. I poured myself a glass of wine and walked out onto my balcony, looking at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Robert Morgan was probably congratulating himself on how cleverly he'd handled everything. Enjoy your weekend, Robert, I whispered to the night air. Monday's going to be interesting. I spent Saturday reviewing files Sarah had backed up, not company secrets, but my own careful documentation of every shortcut, every questionable decision, every financial sleight of hand Robert had used to make his numbers look better than they were. None of it was technically illegal. Robert was too smart for outright fraud, but it wouldn't look good to shareholders when they realized how much had been hidden behind creative accounting. Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Lisa totally bombed the Jensen meeting. Contracts on hold. Stocks going to tank when market opens. I smiled. Everything was falling into place. I laid out my outfit for Monday, not the conservative suits I'd worn as COO, but something more appropriate for what was coming. Something that said, I own you, rather than I work for you. As I fell asleep that night, I thought about Robert's smirk as he fired me. By Monday, you'll be yesterday's news. Oh, Robert, I thought, you have no idea what Monday will bring. Monday morning dawned bright and clear. I arrived at Stellar Technologies at precisely 9:30 a.m., just as the opening bell was ringing on Wall Street. The security guard did a double take when I walked through the lobby. I wasn't supposed to be here anymore. Ms. Chen? He reached for his phone. I should call up. That won't be necessary, John. I handed him a document. I have a meeting with the board of directors. He studied the paper, eyes widening as he read. Without another word, he handed me a visitor's badge. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent. I checked my phone, watching as Stellar's stock price began its predicted descent. The failed Jensen contract negotiations had leaked, down 5% already, and the day had barely begun. The boardroom was full when I walked in. Robert Morgan sat at the head of the table, face flushed as he tried to calm angry board members. Lisa huddled in a corner, furiously texting, probably calling in sick for her second day as COO. This is unacceptable, Charles Wilson, our largest independent shareholder, was saying. The Jensen contract was vital to our Asian expansion. We have other opportunities, Robert blustered. Lisa is already exploring. Hello, Robert. Every head turned toward me. Robert's face went from red to white in record time. Olivia, security. He reached for the phone. I wouldn't, I said calmly. Not until you've read this. I began distributing folders to each board member. What is this? Charles Wilson opened his folder, adjusting his glasses. A tender offer, I replied. For controlling interest in Stellar Technologies, my investment group is offering 20% above current market price for all outstanding shares. Robert laughed, but it sounded hollow. This is ridiculous. You can't afford. Chen Global Holdings can afford quite a bit, actually. I smiled. You never asked about my family, Robert. Never wondered why a young executive had such extensive experience in Asian markets. The board members were reading rapidly now, their expressions shifting from confusion to interest as they saw the numbers. Chen Holdings? Robert's voice cracked. The Hong Kong Investment Fund. My uncle's company, I nodded. Though I control a significant portion. We've been watching Stellar for quite a while, waiting for the right moment to make our move. Charles Wilson looked up from the documents. This is a serious offer. Very serious, I agreed, especially given this morning's stock performance. Tell me, Robert, how many more contracts will Lisa lose before shareholders start demanding answers? Lisa burst into tears and ran from the room. Robert started to stand, but Charles Wilson's sharp voice stopped him. Sit down, Robert. Ms. Chen, please continue. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen. Let me show you what Stellar could become under competent leadership. For the next hour, I laid out my vision for the company, the AI technology my Singapore team had developed, the Asian markets we could dominate, the partnerships I'd quietly been developing for months. By the time I finished, most of the board was nodding. Charles Wilson looked at his phone, where Stellar's stock had dropped another 8%. Robert, he said quietly, I believe we need to seriously consider this offer. This is my company. Robert slammed his fist on the table. My family built it. And you've done an excellent job running it into the ground, I replied. Would you like me to show them the real quarterly reports? The ones without the creative accounting? Robert fell back in his chair, deflated. He knew I had copies, knew what would happen if they became public. The next few hours were a blur of lawyers, documents, and signatures. By 3 p.m., it was done. Chen Holdings owned 51% of Stellar Technologies. I owned Robert Morgan's empire. Clear out your office, I told him, enjoying the irony. You have until 5. He stood shakily, his $1,000 suit suddenly looking cheap. How long, he asked. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you made me teach Lisa how to do my job, I replied. I knew then what was coming, so I made my own plans. The stock price. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You manipulated it. Leaked information about problems. I didn't leak anything, Robert. Your daughter did that all on her own. I just made sure my uncle's fund was ready to move when the opportunity arose. He walked to the door, then turned back. I underestimated you. Yes, I agreed. That was your first mistake. Firing me was your last. After you left, I walked through the office, watching as word of the takeover spread. My former team was trying to hide their grins. Even those who hadn't worked directly with me knew what this meant. Competent leadership was returning to Stellar. I found Lisa cleaning out her office, mascara streaking her face. You can stay, I told her, surprising both of us. Entry-level position. You'll start where I started, at the bottom. Learn the business properly this time." She stared at me, then nodded slowly. Maybe there was hope for her after all. By evening, the office was quiet. I stood at the window of what was now my office again, watching the city lights come on. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Congratulations from allies, interview requests from business media, panicked messages from competitors. Sarah appeared at my door, holding a familiar jade elephant. "Found this in the storage room," she smiled. "Thought you might want it back." I placed it on my desk, exactly where it had sat before. "Have marketing prepare a press release," I told her. "Tomorrow we announce the Singapore project. And call Jensen. Tell him I'd like to resume negotiations personally." "Yes, Ms. Chen," she paused. "It's good to have you back." After she left, I sat in my chair, not Robert's old chair, but a new one I'd ordered. A clean break from the past. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from my uncle in Hong Kong. "Well done, little fox. Your father would be proud." I smiled, remembering the lessons my father had taught me before he passed. About patience, about watching and waiting, about letting your enemies think they've won until the perfect moment to strike. Robert Morgan had thought he was ending my career. Instead, he'd given me the perfect opportunity to take everything he had. I picked up my jade elephant, rubbing it for luck as I had so many times before. Its smooth surface reminded me of another lesson, one Robert had never understood. True power isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about being underestimated, being patient, and being smarter than those who think they can discard you. Tomorrow, Stellar Technologies would begin its new chapter. The media would talk about the dramatic takeover, the young executive who outmaneuvered her former boss, the changing face of corporate America. But tonight, I simply enjoyed the quiet of victory, knowing that somewhere in his empty mansion, Robert Morgan was finally learning what I'd known all along. Never fire someone who knows exactly how to destroy you. The next morning's Wall Street Journal told the whole story. Tech industry stunned by stellar takeover. Former CEO returns as CEO and controlling shareholder. The article went viral, shared thousands of times with captions like "Best revenge story ever" and "Why you shouldn't underestimate your employees." But my favorite response came from Mike, who simply taped a sign to my door that read, "Never mess with the quiet ones. They're probably plotting something brilliant." I left the sign up. After all, it wasn't wrong.